Welcome to Monk's Temple. Let me ask you something strange. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the mood? You walk into a space where two people have just been arguing. No one's speaking, but the air feels thick. You can almost taste the tension. Where is that mood? Is it floating around like a ghost? Is it stuck to the furniture? No. That mood is arising within you. You're picking up on subtle cues your conscious mind hasn't registered, and your brain is constructing an atmosphere. This is your first clue that the line between in here and out there isn't as solid as you think. There's a tradition of Buddhist psychology called Yogacara that spent centuries mapping this terrain. 1500 years before Freud, these meditators were studying the unconscious, the ego, and how we project our inner world onto outer reality. They called their core discovery Citamatra, mind only. Now, before you dismiss this as crazy talk, let me be clear. Mind only doesn't mean nothing exists. It means you never experience raw reality. You experience your mind's translation of reality. The color blue isn't in the sky. The sky emits wavelengths. Your brain translates those wavelengths into blueness and then projects that blue onto the sky as if it were a property of the sky itself. You're not just seeing the sky. You're generating the sky. Let me tell you about my friend Marcus. Marcus worked in a high-pressure office. Every morning, he'd walk in and feel his shoulders tense. The fluorescent lights felt harsh. The photocopier noise felt aggressive. His coworker's voice grated on him. He was convinced he worked in a hostile environment. One year, he worked remotely for 6 months on a special project. When he returned, something odd happened. He walked in, and the lights seemed normal. The photocopier was just background noise. His coworker's voice sounded friendly. The office hadn't changed. Marcus had changed. The seeds he'd been watering, resentment, competition, stress, had lain dormant during his time away. New seeds had grown. He walked into the same building and experienced a completely different world. This is mind only in action. The office wasn't hostile. It wasn't friendly. It was neutral. Marcus was the one coloring it with his internal state. The Yogacarans explain this through a simple model. They say every experience involves 3 layers. First, there's raw sensory contact, light hitting your eyes, sound hitting your ears. Second, there's recognition, your mind labels what you're seeing. That's a tree. That's a car. That's my boss. Third, there's projection, you experience these labeled things as existing out there, independent of you. But here's the kicker. That third layer is an illusion. The out there feeling is something your mind adds. The Yogacarans call this vyayavijnapti, the object concept. It's the mind's automatic act of taking an internal experience and throwing it outward like a movie projected onto a screen. Think about a dream. In a dream, you encounter people, places, objects. They feel completely external. You interact with them. They push back. Only upon waking do you realize it was all happening inside your mind. The Yogacarans ask, how do you know you're not dreaming right now? How do you know this room, this voice, this body isn't just a more stable kind of dream? If this exploration is resonating, please take a moment to subscribe. We're building something here, a community dedicated to understanding the mind, not just entertaining it. Your support makes these deep dives possible. Now, let's go deeper. Close your eyes for a moment if you're able. Just listen to the sounds around you. Don't label them. Don't think, that's a car, or, that's the furnace. Just receive them as pure vibration. Notice the quality of the sound, its texture, its pitch, its duration. What you're doing is dropping the second layer, the labeling, and touching the first layer, raw sensory contact. In that brief moment, the world becomes more vivid, more immediate. The commentator in your head goes quiet. This is a taste of what the Yogacarans call direct knowing. Now open your eyes and look at something simple. Your hand, maybe. Notice how instantly your mind labels it. Hand. 5 fingers. My hand. Slightly dry skin. That labeling happens so fast you don't even see it. It's like a reflex. But here's the question, before the label, hand, arose, what was there? Just color, shape, sensation. Just raw experience. This is the first insight of mind only. Your reality isn't given to you. It's constructed by you, moment by moment, so seamlessly that you mistake the construction for the thing itself. You're not just living in your head. In a very real way, you're living as your head. And once you see this, once you catch the mind in the act of building the world, nothing looks quite the same again. In our first part, we discover that the world out there is largely a construction. The colors, the sounds, the moods we walk into, these are translations, not raw reality. But if the external world is a mental creation, what about the one who's experiencing it? What about the me, sitting here, watching this, listening to my voice? Is that also a construction? The Yogacara answer is yes. And this is where things get really interesting. They identified a specific mental function they called manas. Not to be confused with the ordinary thinking mind. Manas is deeper. Manas is the factory that manufactures the sense of self. It operates continuously, automatically, and almost entirely outside conscious awareness. Think of it like this. Imagine you're standing in an art gallery looking at a painting. The painting is your experience, the colors, shapes, sounds, thoughts, feelings. Now imagine a tiny spotlight illuminates one small corner of that painting and a voice whispers, that part. That part is me. That's mine. That's who I am. That spotlight, that voice of ownership, that's Manas. Manas takes the vast, flowing river of experience and grabs hold of certain parts. It grabs a sensation in your chest and says, I am sad. It grabs a memory of something you said yesterday and says, I am such an idiot. It grabs a flash of anger at someone and says, they wronged me. In each case, it takes a fleeting, impersonal mental event and turns it into a personal identity. I once worked with a woman named Priya who was convinced she was an anxious person. That was her identity. I'm just an anxious person, she'd say, I've always been that way. She'd feel a flutter in her stomach, and instantly the story would start, oh no, here it comes again. Why am I so anxious? What's wrong with me? Something bad is probably going to happen. The flutter would amplify into full-blown panic. One day, during a meditation, she noticed something. She noticed that before the thought, I am anxious, arose, there was just a flutter. A neutral bodily sensation. Slightly unpleasant, maybe, but just sensation. The flutter didn't come with a label. It didn't come with an owner. It was just energy moving through her body. But Manas grabbed it, labeled it anxiety, and attached it to the concept of me. The suffering wasn't the flutter. The suffering was the owning of the flutter. This is why Yogacara calls Manas afflicted. It's always associated with what they call the four afflictions: the delusion of a self, the perception of a self, identity with a self, and love of a self. Manas is constantly looking at experience and asking, how does this relate to me? Is this good for me? Is this bad for me? Is this mine or not mine? But here's the crucial insight. If you look for this self, this me, that owns your experiences, where is it? Do you see it? Do you hear it? Do you smell it? Your physical senses never encounter a self. You see a hand, not a self. You hear a thought, not a self. You feel a sensation, not a self. The self is not an object among other objects. It's a process. It's the process of claiming. The Yogacarans use a beautiful image. They say Manas is like a mirror reflecting the storehouse consciousness, the deep reservoir of all our mental seeds and impressions. But this mirror is dirty. It's smudged with the delusion that what it reflects is a solid, separate thing. It looks into the vast, flowing stream of consciousness and sees not a stream but a fixed image. And it clings to that image. It calls that image me. This is why meditation is so powerful. In meditation, you sit and watch the mind do its thing. You watch thoughts arise. You watch feelings arise. You watch sensations arise. And if you're very still, very patient, you can see the moment Manas reaches out to grab one of them. You can see the split second when just thinking becomes I am thinking. You can see the construction of the self happening in real time. And in that seeing, something shifts. The self doesn't disappear. But it becomes transparent. You see through it. You see it as a verb, not a noun. You see it as something the mind does, not something the mind is. A Zen master once said, "When I walk, I just walk. When I eat, I just eat. When I sleep, I just sleep." Most of us don't do that. We walk and think about where we're going. We eat and think about what we're eating. We sleep and dream about the day. There's always a commentator, a narrator, a self standing apart from the experience, commenting on it, judging it, owning it. What would it be like to drop the commentator? What would it be like to experience life without the constant I, me, mine, running in the background? What would it be like to just walk, just eat, just sleep? This is not about destroying the self. The self is useful. It helps you navigate the world. It helps you pay your bills and maintain relationships. The point is to see it for what it is, a useful convention, a functional tool, not the core of your being. You wouldn't destroy a hammer because you no longer believe it's alive. You just stop treating it like it's alive. You use it when you need it and put it down when you don't. The same with the self. Use it to write an email. Use it to introduce yourself at a party. But don't live inside it. Don't believe it's the only way to experience reality. Because behind the self, beneath the constant chatter of Manas, there's something else. There's awareness itself, the space in which all this arises and passes away. And that awareness has no I in it. It's just awake. Just present. Just here. And that, right there, is closer to what you really are than any story Manas could ever tell. We've seen how the mind constructs the external world. We've seen how it constructs the internal self. Now we need to ask, what determines which world gets constructed? Why do two people in the same situation have completely different experiences? Why does one person find life full of opportunity while another finds it full of threat? The Yogacara answer is karma. But not karma as fate or cosmic punishment. Karma as gardening. The deep mind, the storehouse consciousness, is like soil. Every experience plants a seed. Every thought, every word, every action, it doesn't just disappear. It sinks down into the soil and becomes latent potential. The Sanskrit word is bija, seed. These seeds lie dormant until conditions are right, and then they sprout into conscious experience. If you spend your day in anger, scrolling through outrage, snapping at people, you're planting seeds of anger. Those seeds will sprout later as a world that feels hostile, people who seem irritating, situations that provoke you. You won't see the seeds. You'll just see a world that makes you angry. But you're looking at your own garden. If you spend your day in kindness, offering patience, noticing beauty, you're planting seeds of kindness. Those seeds will sprout as a world that feels supportive, people who seem friendly, moments of unexpected grace. Same world. Different seeds. Different harvest. I once knew a man named Daniel. He was a successful entrepreneur, but he was miserable. He'd built a company, sold it, made millions, and felt empty. He traveled to exotic places, bought beautiful things, and felt nothing. He came to me saying, "I've done everything right. Why am I so unhappy?" We sat together and looked at his life. What we found was interesting. Daniel had spent 20 years planting seeds of ambition, competition, and acquisition. Every decision was filtered through, will this make me more successful? He'd neglected relationships. He'd dismissed beauty. He'd crushed competitors. He'd planted a garden of achievement, and now he was eating the fruit. The fruit was wealth, status, and utter emptiness. The garden had delivered exactly what he'd planted. He looked at me and said, "So I did this to myself." And I said, "Not as punishment. As gardening. You just forgot to plant anything else." This is the elegance of the Yogacara view. Karma isn't something happening to you. It's something you're doing right now. Every moment, you're planting seeds. Every moment, you're watering old seeds with your attention. The question is not, what did I do in a past life? The question is, what am I planting right now? Think about a habit you'd like to change. Maybe it's scrolling your phone first thing in the morning. Maybe it's snapping at your partner when you're tired. Maybe it's that inner voice that tells you you're not good enough. That habit isn't a monster attacking you. It's a seed you've watered thousands of times. It's strong because you've fed it. It's not going anywhere until you stop feeding it. But here's the hope. You can plant new seeds. You can water different seeds. You can become a conscious gardener instead of an unconscious one. The Yogacarans use another beautiful image. They say the storehouse consciousness is like a great ocean, and individual experiences are like waves. The waves arise from the ocean and return to the ocean. They're not separate. They're just the ocean in motion. Your thoughts, your feelings, your perceptions, they're waves on the ocean of your deep mind. They arise because conditions are right. They pass because conditions change. And you, the one watching this video, you're not the waves. You're not even the ocean. You're the awareness that knows both. You're the space in which the ocean moves. There's a story about a student who asked his teacher, "How can I change my karma?" The teacher said, "Show me your karma." The student was confused. "I can't show you my karma. It's invisible." The teacher smiled. "Exactly. You can't change what you can't see. But look at your life right now. Your relationships, your work, your moods, your body, this is your karma made visible. This is the garden. If you want to know what you planted yesterday, look at today. If you want to know what you'll harvest tomorrow, look at what you're planting right now. So look. Right now, in this moment, what are you planting? Are you planting attention or distraction? Are you planting kindness or judgment? Are you planting presence or escape? Every moment is a seed. Every moment is a choice. Not a choice about what happens to you, but a choice about what you become. This isn't about guilt. It's about empowerment. If you created this garden, you can create another one. Not by fighting the old garden, but by planting new seeds. By giving your attention to what you want to grow. By watering the flowers and letting the weeds wither from neglect. The great news is that gardening is simple. It's not always easy, but it's simple. You don't have to fix everything at once. You just have to plant one good seed. Then another. Then another. Over time, the garden transforms. Not because you uprooted all the weeds, but because the flowers grew so strong there was no room for them anymore. And one day, you'll walk through your life and realize the world looks different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. We've traveled a long road together. We've seen how the mind constructs the world outside. We've seen how it constructs the self inside. We've seen how karma plants the seeds that become our reality. Now we arrive at the final question: is it possible to wake up from all of this? Can we experience reality directly, without the mind's constant filtering and constructing? The Yogacara answer is yes. They call this awakening Asraya-Parvi, the transformation of the basis. It's the great turning at the deepest level of consciousness. And it's not about adding something new. It's about subtracting something old. Imagine you've worn tinted glasses your entire life. You were born with them. Everyone you know wears them. No one mentions them because no one knows they're there. You think the world is slightly blue, slightly dim, slightly distorted. Then one day, someone helps you take them off. The world doesn't change, but you see it for the first time. The colors are brighter. The edges are sharper. This is what was always here. You just couldn't see it through the tint. The tint, in this metaphor, is the construction of self and other, subject and object, inside and outside. It's the fundamental duality that Manas creates and maintains. And the transformation of the basis is when that construction finally relaxes. Vajrabandhu, the great Yogacara philosopher, wrote about this in his 30 verses. He said that even the concept of mind only must eventually be let go. Because if you're still holding the idea, this is all mind, you're still holding something. You're still in the realm of concepts. True awakening is beyond concepts. It's not a better idea. It's the end of ideas. I once heard a story about a woman named Claire. Claire was a dedicated meditator for 20 years. She'd done retreats, studied philosophy, practiced daily. She understood the teachings intellectually. She could explain dependent origination in her sleep. But she still suffered. She still got anxious. She still felt separate. One day, she was walking in the woods near her home. She wasn't meditating. She wasn't trying to be mindful. She was just walking, half thinking about what to make for dinner. And then something happened. She later described it as the world flipping inside out. The boundary between her and the trees dissolved. She didn't see the trees as objects anymore. She experienced herself as the trees, as the path, as the birdsong. There was no Claire walking in the woods. There was just walking. Just woods. Just this. The experience lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then the thoughts crept back. What was that? Did I just become enlightened? I should try to get that back. And poof, it was gone. But she was never the same. She'd tasted something. She knew, in her bones, that the separate self was optional. She'd lived without it, even briefly, and survived. More than survived, she'd felt more alive than ever before. This is what the Yogacarans call jnana, direct knowing. It's not knowledge about reality. It's reality knowing itself. It's awareness aware of itself, without the mediator of thought, without the interpreter of self. In our everyday experience, there's always a gap. There's the observer and the observed. There's the one who sees the sunset and the sunset itself. In direct knowing, that gap collapses. There's just seeing. Just hearing. Just feeling. The sunset isn't something you experience, it's the experiencing itself. Think about moments in your own life when time seemed to stop. When you were so absorbed in music that the listener disappeared. When you were so captivated by a view that the watcher vanished. When you were so deep in conversation that the thinker wasn't there. Those are tastes of jnana. Those are moments when the tint slipped, just for an instant. The transformation of the basis is when that becomes your default mode. Not that you never think again, thoughts still arise. But they're seen for what they are, appearances in consciousness, not the owner of consciousness. They come and go like clouds, leaving no trace, claiming no ownership. A modern teacher once said, enlightenment is an accident. But meditation makes you accident-prone. You can't force the great turning. You can't schedule it or earn it. But you can prepare the ground. You can practice seeing through the self again and again until the seeing becomes effortless. There's a story about a monk who asked his master, "How long will it take me to awaken if I practice diligently?" The master said, 10 years. The monk said, "What if I practice twice as hard?" The master said, 20 years. The monk was confused. Why would practicing harder take longer? The master smiled. Because you're still trying to become something. Awakening isn't about becoming. It's about unbecoming. It's about letting go of who you think you are so deeply that what's always been here can finally be seen. So here we are. At the end of this long exploration. You've learned the map. You've seen the architecture. You've understood the seeds. Now comes the only part that really matters, the living of it. Not believing in mind only. Not understanding mind only. But being mind only. Living from the recognition that what you are is not the wave but the ocean. Not the dream but the dreaming. Not the self but the awareness in which the self appears. The great turning isn't somewhere else. It's not in a cave or a monastery or a future moment of enlightenment. It's here, in this very breath. In this very seeing. In this very hearing. Right now, before the next thought arises, what's here? Not the idea of awareness, but awareness itself. Can you feel it? Can you rest in it, just for a moment? That's it. That's always been it. You just forgot. And now, perhaps, you're beginning to remember. We've covered a lot of ground. The construction of reality. The fabrication of self. The garden of karma. The possibility of awakening. But if all this remains just philosophy, it's useless. The question is, how do we live this? How do we take these insights off the meditation cushion and into the messy, chaotic, beautiful ordinary life? This is where the rubber meets the road. The Yogacara tradition isn't just abstract theory. It's a practical guide for navigating daily existence with clarity and compassion. The point isn't to escape the world. The point is to be fully in it, but without the suffering that usually comes with being human. Let me tell you about my neighbor, Carlos. Carlos is a retired firefighter. He spent 30 years running into burning buildings. He's seen things most of us can't imagine. When he retired, he struggled. The quiet of ordinary life felt wrong. He missed the adrenaline. He missed the clarity of emergency. He found himself getting irritable over small things, a noisy dog, a slow internet connection, a misplaced set of keys. One day, we were talking, and he said, "I don't get it. I survived fires. I pulled people out of wrecks. And now I'm losing my mind because the grocery store is out of my favorite cereal. What's wrong with me?" I said, "Nothing's wrong with you. You're just experiencing the law of karma in miniature. For 30 years, you planted seeds of urgency, danger, and high stakes. Your nervous system got wired for catastrophe. Now there's no catastrophe, but the wiring remains. So your mind creates one. The missing cereal becomes a fire. The slow internet becomes a rescue mission. You're not crazy. You're just reaping what you sowed." Carlos looked at me for a long moment. Then he laughed. Not a happy laugh, a recognizing laugh. The laugh of someone who just saw the punchline of a joke they've been telling on themselves for years. "So what do I do?" he asked. "How do I rewire?" This is the practical heart of Yogacara. You rewire by planting new seeds. Deliberately. Patiently. Without expecting instant results. For Carlos, that meant noticing when the small thing felt like a big thing. Noticing the spike of adrenaline over a trivial inconvenience. And instead of acting on it. Instead of ranting or fuming or slamming cabinets, he'd just breathe. He'd feel the energy in his body and let it be there without following its orders. He'd water the seed of patience instead of the seed of rage. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't instant. But over months, something shifted. The spikes came less often. They were less intense. Carlos started gardening. Literally. He'd spend hours in his backyard, planting vegetables, pulling weeds, just being with the earth. He was planting new seeds in every sense. One afternoon, he brought me a tomato from his garden. He held it like it was precious. He said, "You know, fighting fires was exciting. But this is different. This is quiet. This is peace. I think I like it better. This is living the awakening. Not becoming a different person, but becoming more fully who you already are beneath the layers of conditioning. It's not about achieving a special state. It's about removing the obstacles to what's already here." The great teacher Thich Nhat Hanh used to say, "The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth in the present moment." Walking on water would be spectacular for 5 minutes. Walking on earth, fully present, can transform an entire lifetime. So how do we practice this in daily life? First, we practice recognizing projections. When you feel a strong emotion, anger, craving, fear, pause and ask, is this about the present moment, or is this an old seed sprouting? Usually, it's old. Usually, the trigger is just the condition, not the cause. The cause is in your garden. Seeing this doesn't make the feeling disappear, but it takes away its authority. You stop believing the feeling story. Second, we practice planting new seeds. Deliberately. Intentionally. You don't have to wait for inspiration. You can create it. Put down your phone and look at a tree for 60 seconds. Really look. Let the tree be the whole of your attention. That's planting a seed of presence. Say something kind to someone you usually ignore. That's planting a seed of connection. Sit with discomfort instead of escaping into distraction. That's planting a seed of courage. Third, we practice not watering old seeds. This is harder. When the old pattern arises, the urge to check out, to blame, to complain, just don't feed it. Don't engage. Don't follow the thought. Let it be there like a cloud passing through a clear sky. It has no power except the power you give it by paying attention to it. There's a story about a student who asked his teacher, "How do I achieve enlightenment?" The teacher said, "Stop achieving." The student was confused. "But I have to do something." The teacher said, "Then do this. When you walk, just walk. When you eat, just eat. When you sit, just sit. Don't try to be enlightened. Just be here." Enlightenment is what's left when you stop trying to get somewhere else. This is the paradox. You can't become what you already are. You can only uncover it. You can only clear away the habits, the projections, the selfing that obscures it. And that clearing happens in ordinary moments, not just extraordinary ones. Washing a dish. Waiting in line. Listening to a friend. Breathing. These are not obstacles to awakening. They are awakening, if you bring the right attention to them. The Yogacarans say that the transformation of the basis isn't a one-time event. It's a process. It deepens over time. Each moment of recognition, each moment of not grasping, each moment of planting a good seed, these are tiny turnings. They accumulate. They change the soil. They change what grows. And one day, you realize you're living in a different world. Not because the world changed, but because you did. The same street, the same people, the same tasks. But somehow lighter, somehow freer, somehow more alive. This is available. Not somewhere else. Not someday. Here. Now. In this very breath. The question is not whether you can awaken. The question is whether you're willing to stop running from what you already are. We've walked through the architecture of mind, the construction of self, the garden of karma, the possibility of awakening, and how to live this understanding in ordinary life. Now we arrive at perhaps the most beautiful and challenging teaching of Yogacara, the relationship between the dreamer and the dream. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had a dream so vivid that it felt completely real? You were there. The people were there. The places were there. You felt emotions, fear, joy, desire, grief. You made choices. You experienced consequences. Then you woke up, and in an instant, the entire world of that dream dissolved. Where did it go? It wasn't anywhere. It was never anywhere except in your mind. And yet, while you were in it, it was utterly convincing. The Yogacarans ask, what if this life, this reality you're in right now, is exactly like that? What if you're dreaming right now, but the dream is so stable, so consistent, so shared with others, that you never think to question it? I'm not saying there's another world you'll wake up to after death, though some traditions interpret it that way. I'm saying something more immediate. I'm saying that the quality of being awake, of seeing through the construction, is available now. You don't have to wait to die. You can wake up within the dream. There's a famous analogy in the Yogacara texts. They compare ordinary consciousness to a person who's fallen asleep and is dreaming. In the dream, they're walking through a forest. They encounter a tiger. They're terrified. They run. Their heart pounds. Their breath quickens. The fear is real. The tiger feels real. The running feels real. Then they wake up, sweating, heart still pounding, and there's no tiger. There never was. Now imagine that person, after waking, goes back to sleep. They dream again. Another tiger appears. But this time, in the dream, they remember. They remember, oh, this is a dream. I've seen this before. This tiger isn't real. In that moment of recognition, the fear dissolves. They might even approach the tiger, curious, playful. They're still dreaming, but they're no longer trapped by the dream. This is what awakening looks like in Yogacara. It's not leaving the dream. It's knowing it's a dream while still in it. It's seeing the tiger and smiling because you recognize your own mind projecting the tiger. I once met a woman named Teresa who understood this intuitively, though she'd never studied Buddhism. Teresa was a hospice nurse. She spent her days with people who were dying. She told me that watching people die taught her more about life than living ever had. She said, you know what happens most often? People get scared at the end. Not of death, of wasted life. They realize they spent decades chasing things that don't matter. They realize they were sleepwalking. And in those final days, they start to wake up. They become so present. So loving. So grateful for the smallest things, a sip of water, a hand to hold, a shaft of sunlight on the wall. They finally see that life was always this precious. They just forgot. Teresa paused, then added, I decided not to wait. I decided to wake up now, while I still have time to enjoy it. This is the gift of the Yogacara teaching. It invites us to wake up within the dream, not at the end of it. To recognize that the tiger is our own projection, and in that recognition, find freedom. But how do we know we're dreaming? How do we recognize the dream while we're in it? The practice is simple, though not easy. You start by noticing the gap between stimulus and response. Something happens, someone says something, a situation arises, and before you react, there's a tiny space. In that space, you can ask, is this real, or is this a dream? Is this about the present moment, or is this an old film playing? Usually, it's an old film. You notice the automatic stories. The, I'm not good enough story. The, they wronged me story. The, something terrible is going to happen story. You see these stories arise, and you remember, this is a dream. This is my mind projecting old movies. This isn't reality. It's just how reality appears to a mind carrying old seeds. You don't have to fight the stories. You don't have to make them stop. You just have to recognize them for what they are. And in that recognition, they lose their power. They become like clouds instead of mountains. They float through, but they don't block the sky. There's a story about a monk who was meditating in a cave. He'd been there for years, and he started having visions. Beautiful goddesses appeared, offering him bliss. Terrifying demons appeared, threatening to devour him. He was tormented, not knowing what was real. Finally, he went to his teacher and said, "What do I do? How do I fight the demons?" The teacher said, "When the demons come, bow to them." The monk was confused. Bow to them? They're trying to destroy me. The teacher said, "They're not trying to destroy you. They're you. They're the rejected parts of your own mind appearing as external threats. If you fight them, you fight yourself forever. If you bow to them, you recognize them as your own. And in that recognition, they lose their terror. This is the deepest practice of Yogacara. Bowing to the demons. Recognizing the projections. Seeing that the enemy, the lover, the judge, the savior. They're all characters in your dream. They're all you, wearing different masks. And here's the paradox. When you fully recognize that everything is mind, something shifts. You don't become isolated in your own private world. You become more connected. Because if everything is mind, then your mind and my mind aren't separate. They're waves on the same ocean. They're dreams within the same dreaming. The great sage Ramana Maharshi put it simply. He said, "Your own self is the ultimate reality. There is nothing else." Not in a narcissistic way, but in a way that includes everything. Yourself, with a capital S, is not the small self, the manas self. It's the awareness in which all selves appear. It's the dreamer dreaming all the dreams. And that dreamer, that awareness, is what you've always been. You just forgot. You got lost in the character. You thought you were the wave, not the ocean. But the ocean never left. It's right here, right now, holding every wave, every dream, every self. And it's waiting for you to remember. Not somewhere else. Not someday. Here. Now. In this very breath. Can you feel it? Can you sense the awareness that's hearing these words? Not the thoughts about awareness, but awareness itself. The knowing in which all this appears. That's what you are. That's always what you've been. And that, right there, is the end of the dream. We've arrived at the final part of our journey together. 7 explorations into the nature of mind, self, karma, and awakening. If you've made it this far, something in you is ready for this. Something in you is tired of the dream and hungry for the real. So let me ask you directly, what are you seeking? Maybe you're seeking peace, an end to the endless churn of anxiety and craving. Maybe you're seeking understanding, a framework that makes sense of this confusing existence. Maybe you're seeking freedom, release from the patterns that have trapped you for as long as you can remember. Maybe you're seeking yourself, the real you beneath all the roles and stories. Whatever you're seeking, I have news for you. It's closer than you think. In fact, it's so close that you've been overlooking it your entire life. The Yogacara masters have a phrase for this. They say that seeking enlightenment is like riding an ox while looking for the ox. You're already on it. You're already it. The seeking itself is what obscures the finding. There's a famous story in the Zen tradition, which was deeply influenced by Yogacara, about a man searching for water. He travels across deserts, over mountains, through jungles. He asks everyone he meets where to find water. He suffers terribly from thirst. Finally, exhausted and ready to die, he collapses on the ground. And as he lies there, his ear pressed to the earth, he hears it. The sound of water running directly beneath him. He'd been standing on an underground river the whole time. He just never thought to look down. This is the human condition. We travel everywhere, seek everything, try every technique, and miss what's already here. The peace you're seeking isn't in a different relationship, a different job, a different body, a different state of mind. It's in the awareness that's reading these words right now. It's never left. You left it. And by you, I mean the seeking mind, the grasping mind, the mind that believes fulfillment is somewhere else. I once knew a man named Robert. Robert was a seeker in the classic mold. He'd done it all. 10-day Vipassana retreats. Ayahuasca ceremonies in Peru. Zen monasteries in Japan. Advaita satsangs in India. He'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and 20 years chasing enlightenment. And he was more miserable than when he started. He came to me and said, "I've tried everything. Nothing works. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this." I said, "Tell me about your seeking. What are you looking for?" He said, "Peace. Freedom. To be done with suffering." I said, "And when you're not looking, what's here?" He stared at me. "I don't understand." I said, "Right now, this moment, before you think about seeking or not seeking, what's here?" He sat quietly for a long time. Then his face softened. He said, "Quiet. There's just quiet. And space. And, okay, this sounds crazy, but peace. There's peace here. I said, there always was. You were just too busy seeking to notice. This is the great irony. The seeking mind can't find what it's looking for because the looking itself is the obstacle. It's like trying to see your own eyes. You can't. They're what does the seeing. You can only see what they're looking at. And the moment you stop trying to see them, you realize they've been seeing all along. The Yogacarans call this jnana, direct knowing. It's not knowledge about reality. It's reality knowing itself. It's awareness aware of itself. And it's available now, not because you've achieved something, but because it's what you are. So how do we stop seeking? How do we rest in what's already here? You don't. Stopping seeking is just another form of seeking. I must stop seeking so I can find peace is still a seeking mind. The real shift is recognizing that the seeker itself is the problem. The one who's looking for peace is the very thing disturbing the peace. Think about it. When you're fully absorbed in something, a beautiful view, a piece of music, a captivating conversation, where is the seeker? Gone. There's just the experience. There's just the view, the music, the conversation. The seeker disappears. And in that disappearance, peace is already here. The practice, if we can call it that, is simply to notice the seeker when it arises. To see the movement of mind that says, I need something more than this. I need to understand this better. I need to get enlightened. Just see it. Don't fight it. Don't follow it. Just see it as another thought, another wave in the ocean of consciousness. And in that seeing, for just a moment, there's no seeker. There's just seeing. And that's enough. That's always been enough. A modern teacher once said, you are the sky. Everything else, thoughts, feelings, seeking, finding, is just weather. The sky doesn't need to find itself. It doesn't need to become clearer or bluer. It's already the sky, regardless of the weather. Your true nature is like that sky. Unborn, undying, unchanging. Clouds come and go. Storms arise and pass. The sky remains. So here we are at the end. Not of the journey, because there is no journey. Not of the seeking, because there's nowhere to go. Just here, at the beginning of recognizing what you've always been. The Buddha's last words were said to be, all compounded things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. But another translation, a more heart-level translation, might be, everything falls apart. Wake up anyway. You've been given the map. You've seen the architecture. You've understood the seeds. Now comes the only part that matters, living it. Not as a philosophy, but as a life. Not as something to achieve, but as something to notice. And what you'll notice, if you pay attention, is that what you've been seeking has been seeking you all along. The peace you wanted has been holding you since before you were born. The freedom you longed for has never been absent for a single moment. You just forgot. You got busy. You started seeking. But now you remember. And in this remembering, the seeking can rest. The dream can be seen as dream. And the dreamer. The awareness that's always been awake, can finally recognize itself. Thank you for walking this path with me. Thank you for your attention, your openness, your willingness to question everything. The garden of your mind is waiting. The seeds you plant now will become the world you live in tomorrow. Choose them wisely. Water them with presence. And trust that beneath all the planting and watering, the gardener and the garden are one. See you on the other side of the next thought. We've explored 7 aspects of mind and reality. Now we arrive at the 8th, which isn't really an aspect at all. It's the ground from which all aspects arise. It's what remains when all the aspects are seen through. It's silence. Not the silence between sounds. That's still a sound, just quieter. I'm talking about the silence that holds all sounds. The silence that was here before the first sound and will be here after the last. The silence that doesn't come and go because it was never born. You can't hear this silence with your ears. You can only be it with your being. There's a story about a musician who traveled to see a famous master. The musician was accomplished, celebrated, technically perfect. But he felt empty. His music had no soul. He said to the master, "I've studied with the greatest teachers. I've practiced for 40 years. Why does my music not touch people's hearts?" The master said, "Play your finest piece." The musician played. It was flawless. Every note precise. Every phrase perfect. When he finished, the master said, "Beautiful. Now play the silence between the notes." The musician was confused. There is no silence between the notes. The notes fill all the space. The master said, "Then your music will never live. The notes are just visitors. The silence is the home. If you don't honor the silence, the notes have nowhere to rest. They just pass through, touching nothing." This is the Yogacara teaching at its deepest. All the constructions, world, self, karma, even awakening, they're notes. Beautiful notes, important notes, but notes nonetheless. What's more fundamental is the silence in which they appear. The awareness that holds them. The space that allows them to be. We spend our lives focused on the notes. We try to arrange them perfectly. We want more pleasant notes, fewer unpleasant ones. We judge our lives by the quality of the notes. But we completely overlook the silence that makes the notes possible. Think about your own experience. Thoughts arise and pass. Where do they come from? Where do they go? Feelings arise and pass. Sensations arise and pass. Perceptions arise and pass. But the awareness that knows them, does that come and go? Close your eyes for a moment. Notice the thoughts. Now notice the space in which thoughts appear. That space, has it ever been absent? Has it ever been born? Will it ever die? This is what the Yogacarans point to when they speak of the transformation of the basis. Not a new experience, but the recognition of what's been experiencing all along. Not a new state, but the seeing that all states are visitors to this silent home. I once met a man named William. William was a retired accountant, 83 years old, living in a small apartment. He had no family, few friends, and a body that was slowly failing him. By any external measure, his life was small and shrinking. But when you sat with William, something remarkable happened. You felt held. You felt seen. You felt the silence radiating from him. I asked him once, "What's your secret? How do you stay so peaceful with everything you're losing?" He laughed, a deep, warm laugh, and said, "Losing? I'm not losing anything. The body's changing. The memories are fading. The world's getting smaller. But what I am, what I've always been, that's not changing. That's not losing anything. That's just, here. Always here. I used to be so busy chasing things, I never noticed it. Now I can't stop noticing. It's all that's left. And it's enough. More than enough." William had stopped chasing the notes. He'd discovered the silence. And in that discovery, he'd found everything. This is available to you. Not at 83. Not after decades of practice. Now. Because the silence is now. The awareness is now. You don't have to become silent. You have to notice you already are. The great teacher Ramana Maharshi used to send people away with a simple instruction. He'd say, "Find out who you are. Not through thinking. Through turning attention inward, on itself. Asking, 'Who am I?' not to get an answer, but to trace the sense of I back to its source. And at that source, there's no I. There's just being. Just awareness. Just silence. Try it now. Close your eyes. Bring your attention to the feeling of being alive. Not your thoughts, not your body, just the sense that you exist. That sense of I am. Now gently ask, where does this I am come from? What's its source? Don't answer with words. Just feel your way back, like following a thread into the dark. Where does it lead? If you're honest, if you're patient, it leads nowhere. It leads to no thing. It leads to the silence before I am arises. It leads to what you are before you are anything. And that, right there, is home. That's always been home. You just forgot. You got busy with the notes. You got lost in the music. But the silence never left. It's holding you right now. So here we are at the end of our time together. 8 parts. Thousands of words. Countless concepts. And all of it pointing to what can't be said. All of it pointing to silence. The silence is not somewhere else. It's not in a cave or a monastery. It's not in a special state or a future moment. It's here. In this breath. In this reading. In the space between these words. Can you feel it? Just for a moment, let the words go. Let the concepts go. Let the seeker go. Rest in the silence. Rest in what you've always been. That's it. That's all. That's everything. We've reached the end. 8 explorations into the nature of mind, self, and reality. But endings are just beginnings in disguise. The real journey doesn't begin until you close this video and step back into your life. So what now? You've learned that the world outside is a construction. You've seen that the self inside is a process. You've understood that karma is gardening. You've tasted the possibility of awakening. You've glimpsed the silence beneath all. But knowledge isn't freedom. Understanding isn't transformation. The question is, will you live this? A woman once came to a teacher after a long retreat. She said, "I've learned so much. I feel so clear. I'm ready to go home and be enlightened." The teacher smiled and said, "Enlightenment is like the moon. When you look at the moon, you see it clearly. But when you walk home in the dark, you need a lamp. Your understanding is the moonlight. Your practice is the lamp. Don't confuse them. The moonlight is beautiful. It inspires. It reveals. But it won't light your path. Only your own practice, your own attention, your own moment-to-moment awareness can do that. So here's your lamp. Simple. Portable. Always available. When you wake up tomorrow, before you reach for your phone, pause. Feel the breath. Feel the body. Rest in awareness for just 1 minute. Plant that seed. When you feel triggered during the day, angry, afraid, craving, pause. Ask, is this about now, or is this an old seed? Just ask. Don't analyze. Just notice. When you're doing ordinary things, washing dishes, walking, waiting, drop the story. Just do the thing. Let it be enough. When you lie down at night, review your day not with judgment but with curiosity. What seeds did you plant? What seeds did you water? No guilt. Just gardening. This is it. This is the whole path. Not somewhere else. Not someday. Here. Now. In this very breath. The great teacher Krishnamurti once said, "I don't mind what happens." That's the fruit of this practice. Not caring. Not numbness. But a deep trust that whatever arises, you can meet it with awareness. That you are not the wave. You are the ocean. And the ocean isn't troubled by waves. It's home to them. So go. Live your life. Love the people in it. Do your work. Face your challenges. But do it all from this recognition, you are not the dream. You are the dreaming. You are not the world. You are the awareness in which the world appears. And that awareness, that's what you've always been. That's what you'll always be. Unborn. Undying. Unshakably at peace. Thank you for walking this path with me. Thank you for your attention, your openness, your willingness to question everything. The garden is yours now. Plant well. Water wisely. And trust what grows. See you on the other side of every dream.